Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do graphing using sheets instead of Excel. It's real similar. First of all, you're going to want to change the name. It probably says Untitled Document up there. So I titled it Density Lab Sheets because that way I remember that it's done in Sheets instead of done in Excel. But you can call it Density Lab and then put your last name. That would be fine. And then in this first column, you can see I have all these numbers. Column A, just like it tells you on the lab sheet, is volume of the water. Column B is the mass of the water. And so we have to give those a title. And so what you're going to do is click on cell A1. That would be where column A, row 1, it's called a cell. And you're going to type. And all you have to do is type in, just like normal, volume of water. Put parentheses and then write milliliters. Now you might notice that it's wider than the column. So there's a couple ways you can handle that. You can highlight the column, and all I did to do that was just click on the letter A, and then you go over here to between the A and the B, and you get these arrow things, and, oh, stop it. It's harder with a stylus. And you can expand it wider, or I can undo that, and I can do something called wrap text. Now in Sheets, it's a little bit different than it is in Excel. It's over here under this arrow thing. It's called text wrapping, and you want to do this one. And if you notice, look what it did to my thing. It kind of fit it all inside the square, however big my square was. So over here, I'm going to type in mass of water. That's in grams. And again, it's you know, it doesn't look great. So I'm going to put it in B, and I'm going to wrap the text on that one as well. Okay, so it looks a little bit better. Column C is going to be density of water. That's in grams per milliliter. Mass divided by volume. And again, it doesn't have that nice look to it, so I'm going to wrap the text. Okay, so that's one of the things you can do. The other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is sig figs. So if you see on Sheets up here at the top, you see where it says 0.0 and it's got an arrow pointing to the left, and it says 0.00 and it's got an arrow going to the right. Well, if you click on column A and I want to have 1 decimal point, I would click that double zeros and an arrow to the right. It adds another 0. If I wanted to do another one or another one or another, I could do like tons. Now, according to our data, we don't have that many sig figs. I think we only have 1 after the decimal point. When it comes to the mass of the water, you might have noticed that Excel will put in, I put in 9.75, fine. I probably typed in 19.90, but it just drops the 0. And again, we're concerned about sig figs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this button to give everything extras, and then I'm going to turn it back so that everything has 2 decimal places, because that's really what we need to have, because that's what the balance will do. Okay? Now, to calculate the density, you have to tell Sheets, not Excel. I'm going to call it Excel. I'm sorry, it's Sheets. You have to tell Sheets what you want it to do, and you have to use the word equals. And so literally, I typed on cell, was it C2, and I type in the button that says equals, and I say, all right, what do I want it to calculate? Well, I want it to calculate density. And density is where I'm going to take my mass divided by my volume. And so in order to calculate the density for each of these without typing it in on a calculator, I'm just going to click on the cell B2, which is the mass of my water for my first sample. And then on my keyboard, I'm going to type in that little divide sign. And I'm going to say, I want you to divide the mass by the volume. And so it's going to take the mass that is listed in the first column, the volume that's listed in the, mass in the second column, volume in the first, and there's a reason why we did that, and it's going to divide them. Now you might think that's a lot harder, and there's my density. That's a lot harder than just doing it myself on my calculator. Well, here's the cool thing about spreadsheets. If you click back on that cell where you just made that calculation, you programmed it to make the calculation for you, you see that little square? If you grab that square and drag it down, and I'm not very good at grabbing that square with a stylus, it will calculate the density for you. Boom. You don't have to do it. It's programmed to calculate it. So it took 19.90 and divided by 20 and it got that. It took 30.2 and divided by 30 and got that. 40.3, and that's how it calculated it. Okay, now, sig figs are an issue. Okay, these things, most of them, are going to have 3 sig figs because the volume is 3 sig figs. So I want to tell it to have 3 sig figs. So everything's got 3, okay? Sorry, not after the decimal point. These two have 3 after the decimal point. This one has 4. So what I need to do is I need to highlight this column where I'm only allowed to have 3. And I'm going to change it so that I have 3. That one needs to have 4. I'll stop it. This one, sorry, needs to have 3. And the rest of them are okay. All right. The last one has to have 4 because that has 4 sig figs and that one has 5. So that's how you calculate it. Now the other thing you can do is you can calculate an average. And I'm not sure if I did this in Excel or not. You type in equals, again, tell Sheets what you want it to do. Type in AV, and then it pops up with all these options. Well, there's average. And then you want to tell it where to do the average at. Okay? And you just literally highlight all the data and hit enter. And it calculates an average density. Okay? Same thing over here for the clay. You would do volume of clay, milliliters. Oh, good grief. And again, wrap the text to make it fit. Okay. Same thing here. This is mass of clay, grams. And again, you can wrap the text if you want. It might make it a little bit nicer looking. It might not do anything. In this case, it doesn't. Density of clay in grams per milliliter. And again, wrap the text. Okay. Now to calculate the density here, again, you're going to do mass. So you type equals, type in the mass variable, the cell for mass, which is F2, divided by the cell for volume, which is E2. Hit enter. And then again, take that little square, oops, it's really hard with a stylus, and drag it down. Okay. And again, let's talk about sig figs. Volume here was probably at least 1 decimal point. This one was probably 2 decimal points, looks like it is. Here, in terms of sig figs, really, they should have a lot less than what they have. Top number should have 3. Bottom numbers should all have 2. One more. All right, bottom numbers, starting with here down, should only have 2 sig figs. Okay, so that's how you can adjust it. And again, you can do an average. You do equals AV, pop this up, highlight your data, hit enter, and it'll calculate an average for you. All right, so there's that. Now let's talk about making a graph. Okay, so density is mass over volume. So what I want you to do to make a graph is highlight the numbers only for your volume and your mass of water. And then you're going to go over to insert. And you're going to insert a scatter plot. And it's under chart. And you want a scatter plot. Looks like this, insert. Now it kind of sits on top of your data. So I'm going to move it over. And I'm going to put it on top of my clay for right now, just so that it's visible on the screen. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to check. So take your mouse or your stylus or whatever, finger over, and look at a data point. Oh, I guess it doesn't do it in here. Forget that. All right. What you want to do to this chart is, first thing you want to do is you want to label it. Okay, so on the chart, you're going to, I'm not sure where it is. Give me a minute to find it. Tools. I think all right, edit. That's what you want to do. So it should pop up a little screen. Edit. View mode. I'm not sure. Hold on. I obviously don't use Sheets as much. So what you have is this little square here, that little triangle on the inside. Hit Advanced Edit. and it's going to pull up this little window. And this window is what you're going to mess around with. So under title, you're going to say density of water, because that's what you're graphing, is mass over volume. Okay, the font, all that stuff you can do. Then you want to label the axes. So the horizontal axis, that would be the one that goes across. It's mass over volume, rise over run. So volume is the horizontal axis. And then you can scroll down, and then you're going to do, maybe not scroll down. Yep, you need to include it up here. Then you're going to do vertical axis. That would be the one on the side. That is the mass of water in grams. Okay, there we go. That's good there. Now the big thing that's hard, grid lines, number format, moving it down. All right. Okay, down here where it says trend line. Okay, now we're going to put in a line of best fit. And it's going to kind of go kind of close to those guys. Oh, there it does pop up with my data point. X and Y. X is the volume, Y is the mass. So we're going to try and find the best fit line. So we're going to add a linear, because it looks like a line to me, best fit. Then I want you to scroll down just underneath that. And we're going to put in, not custom, but I want you used to the equation. And what that equation is, right there, is it tells you what the equation for that line is. Think back to Algebra 1. Y equals mx plus b. So my equation here is y, oops, it's not going to write on it for me. Y equals 1.003x. There's my slope, and minus 0.133, that's my y-intercept. Okay, this is pretty good data. Okay, so you want to have that equation there, and you want to do something called show the r-squared value. Okay, r-squared value tells you how close your data is to 1, and it is how close your data is to perfect. If it is 1 or -1, that means it's perfect. Now this is probably rounding it up somehow, and I'm not quite sure how to fix that part. But that's the equation for the line, and you're going to want to use that in your lab report. Okay, when you graph the clay, in all likelihood, it's not going to be very pretty. Okay, don't worry about it. Let it go. But we're going to update this. There's my graph. Okay, so you can see it right here. This is the equation for the line. Okay, this is the line, the density of water, mass of water, volume of water. And if you notice, volume is on the x-axis. It went away on here. It was on the other screen. That was 10 right there. That data point is 10. So that's the x-axis. The other data point is y, 9.75 is the mass. And rise over run is mass over volume, which is density. That's what this 1.003 corresponds to. So you would do a similar graph for the clay. Okay? And the way you do it, I'm going to delete this one. Backspace, how about that? Backspace. Go away. Backspace. Okay, so apparently I can't make it go away, so I'm just going to slide it out of the way. And then in order to make the next graph, you would highlight these data points. Again, volume, then mass. Insert a chart. Scatter plot. Okay, like that. And then you can do customization right away. You can go straight away and say density of clay. And then do all the other things that we did before. Give it a axis titles. Give it a line of best fit. So it's called a trend line. And give it an r-squared value. Okay? And then you'll have your other graph. And I'm just not going to do that one. I'm going to cancel this. And so then you have all your data. And what you would do is when you do submit your lab report, you can just literally cut and paste all of this stuff right into your Google Doc. So you just highlight, and then you do copy, and it's going to say this at you. So then you would do Control-C to copy it, because it's a pain in the neck that it doesn't have the control or the copy button. So you hit Control-C, you would open up a Google Doc, and you would paste that right in there. Then you can highlight this one, Same thing, Control C, highlight it, copy it, paste it right into your Google Doc, hit your graph, hit Control C, it'll copy it, it'll paste it right into your Google Doc. And so spreadsheets are kind of like a workspace where you can make things happen. And Excel and Sheets, but Excel especially is wonderful for what it can do. So that's how you do in Sheets. It's a little bit different than Excel, particularly when you get to this and you're going to do the advanced edit. All the information pops up in a little window. That's very different than Excel. And it's under customization as opposed to recommendations. You're going to add axes. And in particular, you're going to add a trend line. Down at the very bottom of this scroll chart is trend line, linear, and then it pops up with all this other stuff. You want to use the equation and show the R-squared value. Okay? That's it. If you have questions, I guess we can talk about it in class.